Hey, everybody. Welcome back for another amazing conversation. Today, we are talking about the dimensions of intimacy. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome back for another amazing conversation. I am so excited to be talking about intimacy because I love intimacy and just I teach it, so I just love it. So, well, first things first, who am I? If this is your first time watching, hello and thank you. My name is Kasey Charnett King, licensed marriage therapist, relationship coach, and expert, speaker, Navy veteran, author of the Five Senses of Love Relationship Workbook, couple conversation cards. Look, y'all need those cards, I'm telling you. And the marriage planner, the only planner for married couples where you have work all throughout. I'm telling you, it is a gem. It is a must-have. You need it. If you don't, just click down below and go get yours today. So today we're talking about the dimensions of intimacy. When I was in grad school and in supervision about 5 years ago, something like that, I was having a conversation with my clinical supervisor and we were talking about just intimacy communications and things like that. Because I am a marriage therapist, it's something that's always going to come up with couples. One, the way we communicate. Two, our intimacy. Three, sex life, finances, all of the things that drive a marriage. But most importantly, intimacy, what your connection is like. So he gave me this worksheet called The Dimensions of Intimacy. Not sure where he got it from because I cannot find it nowhere on the internet. But I really wanted to have a conversation with you today about that and talk about the different stages of intimacy, because we often think that intimacy is just one thing, and it's not. It's really a cluster of things that drives our marriage. I just wanted to grab my coffee from the floor. So let's get into it. Now, I believe this sheet has about 11 stages, so I may make it a part two. We will see. So, one, what is intimacy? Y'all, I usually get two different answers, and to be honest, it really depends on gender, because we know men often think that intimacy correlates to sex, and women often say intimacy correlates to that of a connection. And some may say, hey, a physical connection. And intimacy really is the closeness that you have with your partner, or the closeness, the connection you have in relationships. And that connection is not always physical. Some people say intimacy is really just the closest type of relationship that you can have with someone. How are you connected? How are you connected emotionally? How are you connected spiritually? And just what does that look like? And for some people, hey, that is really what drives a marriage, is that intimate connection that you have with your partner, because that intimate connection, which some say is the ultimate type of connection, you often can't get anywhere else. So it really drives a lot of marriages and is their number one priority. Because let's be honest, when we get older and our parts are not working, what do we have to rely on? When that physical connection is not, our sexual connection is not really there anymore, that intimate connection is one that just stands the test of time and will always be there. Okay? So let's break it down a little bit and talk about the different types. Now, number one is communication intimacy, which some say is the true source of all intimacy, which I often tell my couples who call me, whether they call me and come in for therapy and a breakdown in their marriage, or some who call for coaching, intimacy coaching, want to improve the quality of their communication. I always tell them that communication is the key. Communication is what really drives your marriage. How are you communicating? How are you listening? What is your approach? And all of those things. So communication can be just really that true source of intimacy. When you talk about what intimacy is and what it looks like for you, how are you communicating that to your partner? How is your partner receiving that? All of that is language. So how are you relaying that information? Can you speak in the way which your partner understands? Can you speak in a way in which your partner has space to reply? Are you speaking in a way that's non-aggressive? So one thing I always like to do is let's look at how we're communicating first, because you want to see how that information is being delivered and received before you work on anything else. So that is communication intimacy. How are we talking? Are we paying attention? Are we in tune with our partners on that level? Do we know the language of their body, what they're saying when they're not speaking? I know this is a lot. And so this is a lot of what I teach and what I do. Number 2, sexual intimacy. We all know what that is. And that is, how free you are. How are you sexually? How are you, with your partner in the way that you have sex? Are you fulfilled? Do you feel close when you're engaging in that activity? Or do you feel like it's a chore? Do you feel like it's a chore and it's boring and it's routine? What conversations are you having around that? What does pleasure look like to you? And is your partner meeting the needs of that pleasure? And vice versa. Are you meeting the needs of the way in which your partner sees pleasure as well? So, what does sexual intimacy look like for your marriage? How do you both define sex? Because let's be honest, and we're going to talk about this at some point, sex is more than just, our parts touching. It's more than, just our parts touching and bumping and hunting and, all of that stuff. So have you clearly talked about what that looks like? And how free are you? How free do you feel with your partner engaging in sexual activity? So let's talk about intellectual intimacy. Now, this is not something that I've heard a lot of people, marriage coaches, marriage therapists, really talk about in your marital design, or even when we look at our partners and we look at the things that we like, the things that bring us together, the conversations that we have. Are we able to have, intellectual conversations? Some people, that's really what drives them. But I can't speak to you on an intellectual level if we can't talk about just world events and just our personal views, our political views, things like that. Because for some people, that really is what intimacy is to them. That's what turns some people on. Can we communicate on an intellectual level? Can we communicate and be okay around our ideas and express them in a way that will be heard and will be respected in the marriage? So that is something definitely you want to look at too. And a lot of people don't really pay attention to that. And there are also some people who really seek that out early in the relationship. And that's really what grows them. That's really what drives them. Short story. I remember I had an aunt who passed away a few years ago. That was one thing that I admired about her and my uncle, is they would just sit and talk about things from basketball to world news to politics. And even if they didn't agree, just the intellectual conversation they had, I always found it so interesting. And I love the way they communicated in that way. And not like that just of a married couple, but two friends who understood each other's views and were able to have just those, respectful and intellectual conversations. So for some people, that's really important to them. So, what are your intellectual conversations like when you talk about your closeness and what your ideas are, your beliefs are? Do you feel close and do you feel open enough with your partner or trust your partner enough to have those conversations, with him or her? So let's talk about number 4, emotional intimacy. Now, this is one of my favorites. One of my favorites. Outside communication, emotional intimacy is one of my favorites. And they both really go hand in hand. And emotional intimacy is really that type of intimacy that a lot of people, most people, really strive for. And when you say the word intimacy, many people, especially women, go right to emotional connection. Why is that? Because the emotional connection is really how you're able to express yourself, how you're able to share your feelings, trust, vulnerability. Do I trust my partner enough to be vulnerable be vulnerable to them? And I often like to say, just being vulnerable is like being naked. Because that's just the ultimate sign of trust, right? If I can bear down everything, bear down myself, and present this to you as I am, can I trust that? Can I trust that you're going to take it and you're going to protect it? Can I trust that when I just give you my life, that you are going to protect it? Or even just when I break down and express myself to you, can I trust that you will listen and respect me? So a lot of people, when you talk about intimacy, they go straight to, they don't talk about sexual intellectual conflict and all those things. They go right to that emotional connection. Because outside of everything, when sex isn't, parts aren't working anymore, we're old, they go to emotional intimacy because that's what thrives. That's what grows a marriage. That's what keeps you connected. That is how you're able to sit down when you have effective communication and able to work through things, how you're able to express yourself. The pillow talk, growing your marriage, all of that is emotional. How are you actually connected to a person outside of everything else? So that is emotional connection. I can have a whole conversation around emotional connection. So let's get into crisis intimacy. Now, this is another one I didn't hear about until about 4 or 5 years ago. I really did not know was a thing, because when you think about intimacy, who thinks about crisis? Thinks about crisis intimacy. So let's talk about what that is. It's the closeness you have when you're coping with whatever problems or trauma or pain that you're going through. Is your partner available for you? When you're going through conflict, when you're going through trauma, when you're having an emotional breakdown, when you're having just a nervous breakdown, I can even say just an anxiety attack or, a traumatic experience. Is your partner there to catch you when you fall? Do you feel you have that support in your relationship? So when you look at crisis intimacy, when you're going through a crisis in your life, can you rely on your marriage? Can you rely on your relationship to push you through and help you? Whether it's helping you physically or helping you, but just by just being emotionally available, That's what crisis intimacy is. Because some people may say, hey, I can't trust you when I'm going through stuff because you don't understand it. You can't be there to support me. And sometimes it's not just about understanding, but is your partner there to even just lend you an ear or to hold you? They may not know how to respond, but are they responding at all? Because sometimes responding is not just about words. What are their actions to your crisis? Are they holding you? Are they bringing you soup in bed? Are they helping you find a therapist? So, can you rely on your partner in the midst of a crisis to help you get through? So, next, I think I'm gonna be able to get through them all, y'all, in not such a long, not such a long video. So, next, I want to talk about work intimacy. So, work intimacy is really all about roles in your marriage, or roles around the house, sharing common tasks. What's your communication like around sharing common tasks, household rules, parenting? Do you agree in which the way that you both parent? And if you don't, how does that affect the way you communicate? How does that affect your conflict? How does that affect the both of you when your partner is rearing the children in one way and in a way that you don't agree with? How does that affect you? How does that affect your relationship? So, what is your work intimacy like? Sharing those common tasks. Who's doing chores or who's doing what? Do you feel like you both carry an equal load for your household? Do you feel like you're both carrying an equal load for your household? Or do you feel like, hey, I need help and you're not helping enough? So, what is your work intimacy like when you just look at those overall things and the conversations you're having about the roles and the responsibilities in your house? So again, when you look at work intimacy, sharing common tasks, roles, responsibilities, and all of those things, is that an area that you say you do very well on, or hey, we could really use some improvement? So next, we are going to talk about recreational intimacy. I'm going to tell you why this is so important. And I see this a lot with couples, especially couples where one is the introvert, one is the one is the extrovert. So recreational intimacy is how you relate in regards to your ideas of what you see as fun, what you see as play. Some couples where you have an extrovert, they love to be social, they love to try new experiences, they love to be out. That's how they, this is where they get their feeling. That's what makes them feel great. That's what just excites them. Maybe what get, the mind moving. And for introverts, that drains them. Being overly social, always trying new stuff, because most introverts, they have a comfort zone and they like to stay in that. Do not take me out my box, okay? And sometimes it doesn't go well with extroverts who are like, hey, I want us to have this experience together. I want us to do new things together. I want us to be around our friends and have date nights and all of those things. And introverts like, look, that doesn't sound like fun to me. That's not even interesting. Having just long winds of conversation about, what they perceive to be nothing is not my idea of fun. And you're not going to have a good time because it's really going to drain me and it might mess up your time. Do you have a partner like that? Like either or, whether they're an introvert, whether they're an extrovert? Do you have a partner like that? And do you find it sometimes confusing when you're looking at recreational activities and things you can do for fun because of both of you have different ideas of what fun looks like? Now, I'm going to tell you, I think it's really good to have someone who's not as extroverted as you or not as introverted as you because they bring new experiences to your life and can teach you just about calming down or living a little more, having fun, bringing this new experiences into your life. So I think it's a really great thing, if you can find a way to make that work. And sometimes it may not be because sometimes the personality just may be too much, for the other person's personality type. So, yes, so that is recreational intimacy. So, we have three more, and I'm going to get to these really quickly, okay? So, aesthetic intimacy. Aesthetic intimacy. And again, this is another one I never really thought about. And I think because this is one of those that I guess really happens at the very beginning of a relationship, even before the relationship begins. And now I'm thinking about it, it can happen somewhere in the middle of the relationship as well. Because aesthetic intimacy is all about how you both feel about beauty and image. Pretty much a shared experience, how you feel about beauty and image within your relationship. And a reason why I guess I was like, about this one is because, again, when you very first meet somebody, at that very first hello, before that hello, you already see what you deem your version to be is beauty. And it's whether something you heard them say, something you saw before they even spoke, because we all have our ideas of what beauty looks like to us. And, or even the environment that you met them in. Because you both can be out running, and that can be just beautiful to you because you both share that experience in health. You both share that experience in fitness. And what you see is beautiful, what you see is taking care of your body. So that is a very at the beginning type of thing. Now, where it can come up in the middle of your relationship, whatever you deem the middle to be, or at some point down the line in your relationship, is if those views are different. Let's say, for example, a woman has kids, man still doing all the things, going to the gym, hiking, taking care of himself, taking care of his body, and the woman, we may divulge an ice cream here and there when we're pregnant, or kind of just let go and, live a little bit, or even just pick up baby weight. And sometimes that weight is just hard to kick. And we no longer see just being that physical or being, at that particular weight as the most important thing in that moment. But our partner may see differently because that was their initial reaction to what beauty was as when they saw you before. I see this a lot in couples because it's often with women where, hey, I'm not that person anymore. I've had 2, 3, 4 kids. I may never be that way again. And a husband or other partner over here is really hanging on to that person you were because that is what attracted me to you. So I see this conflict, quite a bit. Who I am now versus who I was and may not be again. And are you okay with that? And so how do we share our experiences in regards to beauty, what we see as beautiful, and not just physically, but internally externally, like I said, with just nature and your experiences and what you see as beauty in your intimate relationship. So let's talk about creative intimacy. So creative intimacy can involve a lot of things, and it's really just how you create together and what that looks like for you. So creative intimacy can be you at home cooking styles, your children, not so much how you rear, your children, but just your relationship with them. What does that look like? How do you share your desires around that? How do you share your desires of how you create together? And not just creating children, how you create your marriage. What does that look like for you? Are you both on the same page? And so that's creative intimacy. Lastly, and this is a very big one, and this was probably be in my, I guess, top three, four, top three, and this is spiritual intimacy. And for many people, this is really number one for them. I have no issue with that because all of these are really relative as what's most important to you. Even though I'm always hang on to communication. Spiritual intimacy is really, your shared or lack thereof, beliefs around spirituality, intimacy, your relationship with God. This is one of those things that is sometimes non-negotiables in your relationship. Can you negotiate or compromise on your partner's spirituality, on their beliefs, whether they attend church or the temple, or, things like that? How do they practice their faith daily? And do you both have that commonality? And if not, does it work for you? What is your mission? Sometimes people say that, hey, this is bigger than us. And we have to agree that this is bigger than us for this to drive, for this thing to go. That is not you or me that's first, but it's God. And this is a very important conversation to have if you are, yes, married, but at that point where we want to be committed, we want to be married. I would say very early on in the relationship. I actually had this as a question in my couple conversation cards. Just your views around religion. What is your relationship, with God? Are we joined together to do something important? What is our mission together? What are our ultimate concerns? Where does our faith lie? So these are very important questions and conversations to have with your partner. What is your spiritual intimacy like? What is that spiritual connection? Does it align? Are you okay if it doesn't align, as long as the belief is there? We can both practice differently as long as that belief is there. So what works best for you and your relationship for it to thrive? So I hope all 11 of these dimensions of intimacy was helpful to you. Let me know which one means the most to you and for your relationship to thrive. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please reach out to me via email, info@ksalone, KSALONE.com. And also get your couple conversation cards in your marriage planner. You can click the link below. But until then, y'all be well. Have an amazing, thriving marriage that works for you. Don't worry about anybody else. Bye.